Welcome Star Wars fans to the Hyperspace Database. Jonesy here with today's topic. Who were the Gendai species, and who was the bounty hunter Durge? The Gendai were a formless species that originated from a mysterious world around 5,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, during the Great Hyperspace War. The Gendai body structure interestingly did not have any bones, so they typically looked like a mass of muscle and sinew all intertwined. But these creatures often wore heavy armor to give themselves a humanoid form, so they wouldn't stand out so much in the galaxy at large. They did possess a humanoid-looking face with 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth, and 2 wing-like ears, but they did not have any vital organs like lungs or hearts, so extreme injuries like dismemberment or exposure to the vacuum of space had little effect on their survivability. This ability and their average lifespan of around 4,000 to 7,000 years lent to their reputation of being immortal, and they could regrow lost limbs in a matter of minutes. Their bodies were basically large nerve clusters, so their reflexes were incredibly sharp, and they could feel a human heartbeat from over 600 feet away, which made them formidable hunters. They were often portrayed as very tall beings, appearing up to 10 feet tall on several occasions, adding to their fearsome image. While this species seemed unkillable, there were 2 different weaknesses to a Gendai's physiology. One is that if the entire body was incinerated at once, the Gendai would perish. And 2 is that if the Gendai's brain was destroyed, the body would die. A Gendai brain did age like most species, so it would naturally fail with time, though not for several thousand years. When it did get close to failing, the Gendai would experience a type of psychosis, which was a mental disease that often was compared to degenerative madness. The Gendai species hailed from a peaceful world that was destroyed by the Sith Empire after the Great Hyperspace War, and the surviving members of the species were scattered throughout the galaxy. It was a very sad state of affairs, as the species was very peaceful originally, with many of its people being scholars and philosophers, but with their near extinction as a race, many of the Gendai degenerated into violent beings that became mercenaries and bounty hunters. The Gendai were pretty rarely seen after this point in galactic history, never really being involved in any of the major political upheavals and conflicts in the galaxy. Sometimes they would take smaller positions of power in organizations like crime syndicates or bounty hunter guilds, but most of them preferred to operate on their own for their own purposes. The Gendai were fairly secretive, often masking their faces so as to better blend in with local populations, so very little was known about them in the galaxy. Though those that did know about them knew that they were long-lived and hard to kill, often thinking them as vicious killers, though this was in large part due to the age-related psychosis of the deteriorating Gendai brain. There were several popular Gendai that appeared during the time of the Old Republic, like the Flame, who led a resistance against the Sith Empire for destroying their homeworld, and the Locust, who was the leader of a violent criminal group on the city world of Terrace. The most famous Gendai, of course, was Durge, who operated for thousands of years as a notorious bounty hunter. In Legends, Durge has a varied history full of intense battles. He started out as an exceptionally aggressive member of his species, which was uncharacteristic of other Gendai, and this led him to leave his homeworld and travel abroad, searching for the thrill of battle. He eventually fell under the guidance of a Mandalorian named Jang, who taught Durge all that he wanted to know about Mandalorian fighting and tactics. After some time of training under Jang, the pair were approached by a cybernetics specialist who offered to give them the upgrades of a lifetime and convinced them that if they remained as they were, they would eventually become obsolete in combat. After the cybernetic surgery was complete, the doctor informed them that they were being attacked by rival Mandalorians who were after a Sith artifact that the doctor had, and the pair owed him for their modifications. In the following battle, Durge's comrades were wounded by a thermal detonator, which led to Durge having a great hatred for Mandalorians, and he left for Mandalore to exact his vengeance against those that hurt his mentor. Unbeknownst to Durge, however, the Doctor had secretly planned to incite war between the Mandalorians and the Sith for some time, and Durge was just his unwitting pawn, which he unleashed on the galaxy. Durge would wage his own personal war from this point on, fighting against Sith, Mandalorians, Jedi, and many other opponents in his thirst for battle. After the Sith were defeated at Ruusan around 1,000 years before Yavin, Durge went into hiding, going under a false name as a bounty hunter, amassing a large fortune in private bounties along the way. He eventually ran afoul of the Mandalorians once again when he killed the ruler of Mandalore around 100 years before the Battle of Naboo, and he was captured and imprisoned, where he was tortured and then buried alive for 60 years underground. When he finally managed to repair himself and escape from his underground imprisonment, he found that most of the warring Mandalorians had perished, and the Clone Wars had started instead. It was then that he was approached by Count Dooku and offered a tempting opportunity. get paid to kill the clones of the Mandalorian bounty hunter Jango Fett, and fulfill in some way his desire to annihilate all of the Mandalorians. Durge leapt at the chance, and went on many missions with the Count and his apprentice Asajj Ventress. Durge assisted in testing a new chemical weapon on the Gungans of Naboo's moon Oma-Dune, which drew the attention of the Republic and the Jedi Order, and a task force including Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, 2 other Jedi, and several clone troopers was sent to investigate the situation on the moon. Durge was very excited to battle Jedi again, and threw himself headlong into the fray, though he got a bit more than he bargained for when he was stabbed in the abdomen with a lightsaber and shot through the eye by the ARC Trooper Alpha 17. Despite these injuries, though, he continued to fight, and called in Asajj Ventress for additional support in taking down the Jedi and the clones. Alpha 17 and Anakin managed to break away and derail the Separatist plot to spread the chemical weapon to the planet of Naboo, which sent Durge into a rage, but he realized that the battle had been lost, so he retreated and vowed to take down Skywalker at a later confrontation. He later fought against Kenobi again on the volcanic planet Queta, in which he slaughtered more Jedi and left Kenobi to die with the antidote for the new chemical weapon. This would not be the last time that Durge and Kenobi would encounter each other though, as the Gendai warrior was sent to the planet Moonalence to lead a squad of swoop bike-mounted IG Lancer droids against the invading Republic Walker units led by Kenobi. The IG droids managed to destroy many of the Republic Walkers, and though the Republic forces fought bravely, they were outmatched by the speed and ferocity of the Separatists. That is, until the Republic responded in kind and sent out Obi-Wan Kenobi with his own squadron of mounted clone troopers. The Republic and Separatists clashed in a high-speed battle that saw great casualties on both sides, and Durge lost his lance and his bike in the clash with Kenobi. However, with Durge's greatly enhanced reflexes, he managed to stop Obi-Wan's speeder bike with his bare hands and throw the Jedi General off of it, using it as a giant club until Kenobi managed to slice it into ribbons. The fight was intense, though Kenobi managed to get the upper hand, stabbing Durge through the chest, though the warrior would only laugh and launch his own ferocious attack. Durge and Kenobi then clashed in melee combat, with the Gendai throwing darts and flamethrowers against the Jedi, which Kenobi was able to deflect through the Force. However, Kenobi would keep trying, and eventually sliced Durge in half with his lightsaber, leaving the seemingly dead Separatist leader on the battlefield to go fight on other fronts. However, Durge was very much still alive, and ambushed Kenobi and his troops later in the Separatist command center, where he was assaulted on all sides with blaster fire, which ripped up his battle armor and left his true form exposed for all to see. This freed Durge up to run rampant, and he took full advantage of this by stretching his form to attack from a distance, and managed to absorb Obi-Wan into his own body as a last resort. It looked like the end for the Jedi Master, though after only a brief, tense moment did Obi-Wan erupt out of Durge with an explosive use of the Force. While it appeared that this was the final end of the legendary bounty hunter, such would not be the case, as pieces of the Gendai warrior could be seen slinking away from the Jedi General at the end of their epic battle. Durge would recover from this battle after some time though, and continue operating for the Confederacy, using his personal Nova Sword Space Superiority Fighter, which he was gifted with by the Confederacy during the Clone Wars. Near the end of the Clone Wars, he would encounter Kenobi again, this time with Anakin Skywalker at his side. Durge set up a trap for the Jedi, and managed to wound Kenobi with a hidden thermal detonator placed on the bridge of a derelict ship. Durge then appeared and released a relentless barrage of blows on Kenobi until Anakin intervened. Anakin then proceeded to fight the bounty hunter while Obi-Wan went to look for Asajj Ventress. Durge managed to overpower the young Jedi, but Anakin got the upper hand when he used the Force to barrage Durge with a ton of explosive charges, which drove him into a mindless fury. Anakin was able to use Durge's anger to drive him into an escape pod, which he jettisoned into space. Knowing that the bounty hunter could regenerate from nearly any wound, Anakin used the Force to ensure the bounty hunter would never return, and sent the escape pod hurtling into the searing heat of the nearby Maramir star, where Durge finally perished in a fiery ball of wreckage and debris as he melted alongside the escape pod. While Durge mostly appears in Legends material, he did appear in the new canon comic book series Dr. Aphra during the Imperial era, when he runs into Sanastaros and Dr. Aphra aboard the abandoned starship Opal Empress. Durge was hired to capture a weapons smuggler aboard the Empress, but he arrived to find the ship filled with corpses, including his target, and Staros and Aphra standing over the bodies. After they both denied that they killed anyone on board, they were all suddenly attacked by a swarm of parasitic Cymotes, which chased them through the ship. Aphra tricked Durge into fleeing into an airlock, which she then opened to the cold dark of space. But even after he was sucked out, the pair were unsure if Durge was actually dead or not. Interestingly, besides his Legends appearances, Durge was supposed to show up in the Clone Wars TV show as a redesigned human character, but due to budget constraints and Dave Filoni's creative streak yearning to make a brand new character, the legendary Cad Bane was then created, and Durge was left to his Legends origins until his introduction into the new canon in the Dr. Aphra comic books. The Gendai species as a whole was a very fearsome species when they unleashed their warrior side, and although they started as a peaceful race, when driven to extinction they became a devastating force to contend with. And Durge was a notorious Gendai that established a solid reputation as a bounty hunter and warrior, and seemed to survive even the toughest of battles against the Mandalorians, Jedi, the Republic, and anyone else who would dare to stand in his way. Want to know more about great Star Wars topics just like this one? Be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons and the bell to be notified every time I publish a new video. Be sure to select all notifications to never miss out on something new that I publish. Be sure to chat with me in the comments too, because I really want to talk to you. Check out my channel for more great videos as well. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.